Number six, and what we're doing is talking about things to know to make sure that you're not being fooled, that your sales team is better than it really is. How to determine how good your sales team really is. One thing you can do is constantly raise the bar, which is something you mention all the time.
Here's what it is. The sixth point is this one. You have to know how to determine how good your sales team is. We've talked about ways to get fooled. Now let's talk about objective ways to determine. Number one is to constantly raise the bar. And the way to constantly raise the bar is to have them involved in goal setting, have them involved in sales targets. If you do it the correct way, they will come out with numbers. And then what you want to do is you want to constantly raise the bar on them in terms of sales, retention, margins, etc. And do this in an environment where everybody buys in and there's a total group commitment to raising the bar. I had a meeting with our folks the other day. I said, you have to understand something about the Brooks Group. Years ago, the bar was here, and if you were here, you were fine. The bar now is here. And if you're still here, you're going to have a problem, because we're only going to have room around here for the people who step up to it. So you say, well, are you that straightforward with an entire company? Yes, I am. Absolutely. Because I'm going to tell you, there's nothing worse than illusions. People need to know where they stand and what they have to do. And if they're tough-minded, tough people, they'll step up and they'll be held accountable.
Stressful margin selling.
My favorite subject. The name of the game, Rick, is selling at as large a margin as you possibly can. In fact, if you, say, have a 25% gross margin and you reduce your sale price by 10%, you have to sell 3 times more product to have the same net that if you didn't knock off that. See, so what happens is that salesperson or salespeople, they say, okay, well, I can do better than that. Here's our regular price. Are you sitting down for this? Are you ready for this? We've done webinars on this topic. But I'm going to tell you, the really good salespeople, how many times have you heard me say it over our webinar series? They sell high quantity at high margin. Sales has always been, will always be, all about margin, not about volume. Salespeople think it's about volume. And there's an old story about these two fellas that went to Mexico with the truck, and they bought some watermelons, and they bought them for $12 a dozen. And on the way back, they had a whole truck full of them. They got halfway back from Mexico to Dallas, and they had been selling the watermelons off the back of the truck for 75 cents a piece. And the guy said, I figured out what our problem is. He said, what's that? He said, we need a bigger truck. I mean, the name of the game is they're making it up in volume by losing on every deal.
Right.
So the truth is, just because they're selling a lot of volume doesn't mean your sales force is profitable.
And to drive toward the margin and ensuring the margin, you have got to keep reestablishing the value of the product.
Yes, and there's even something deeper than that, Rick. They've got to know what margin is. I've asked hundreds of salespeople, they don't know. Here's what it is. There's gross margin, and here's what it is. Selling price less cost of goods,
right,
is gross margin. Now, below that, you have fixed and variable costs, right? As a sales manager, as a salesperson, I can't control the fixed and I can't control the variable. Now, what I can control? That gross margin. And the higher the gross margin is, the more we have to play with here. What you don't want to do is you don't want to be paying salespeople on profitability of the company, for example. Because here's what they say. How can I control how many pencils AMI buys? Well, you can control gross margin. And now what you do is smart companies actually pay a commission or a bonus based on gross margin.
Makes sense.
But see, now, you get what you reward.
Because if you're not targeting gross margin, then once again you're into the business of distractions, which we've talked about. You're worrying about other things that are not part of the sales process, not part of the sales management process. You're not minding the store.
Here's one I'd like to share with you, because I know what somebody's thinking out there. They're saying, well, my salespeople don't control the pricing. They control the offer made to your pricing by what they say, which means they do control pricing. They put a modifier on the price, like our regular price, our standard price, our catalog price, our price, which automatically says to the prospect what? there's a different price.
Mm-hmm.
Then they use what are called setup statements. They say, are you sitting down? Are you ready for this? Do you have your seatbelt on?
Oh,
Okay?
Yeah.
And so what happens is they do control the pricing because they plant in the mind of the buyer the way they say it that the price is too high. And so consequently, they establish themselves as the one who sets it by allowing the prospect to lower it.
Mm-hmm.
Subtle, but powerful.
Monitor competition.
What you want to do is you want to find out what's going on, because here's what happens. And if you do it in a hearsay kind of a way and it travels over the grapevine, it's usually sour grapes. You need to find out for real what kind of pricing structure they have, what their marketing strategy is. You can find this out from people who sell against them with non-competitive products to yours. You can do their website, you can do this kind of stuff. Don't believe the customer, because the customer is always going to tell you, oh, you know, they have this great price. Well, no, the customer is not the best source, but you need to monitor the competition.
Observe salespeople in the field.
How many times do we say that in our webinars?
A bunch.
The reason for it is that it would be like me, as I said one time, when I was a college football coach, not going out to practice and coaching the team and watching the team in as much of a simulation. The nice part about this is it's not simulation. They're out in front of a real live prospect. Watch what they do. If you have a sales methodology, do they follow it? Do they ask the right questions? Do they sell value? Do they not place a modifier on their price? Right? Do they overcome objections? Do they ask people to buy? The list goes on and on and on and on. And I'm going to submit to you that a lot of people manage their sales force with a computer sheet. Well, their goal was this, they sold this, it end process measurement, and it's too late.
Look for year-over-year improvement.
Yeah.
Now that does seem to be comparing yourself against yourself.
Yeah, that's how is your sales team doing against last year? And then you need to keep abreast of industry trends, association trends, Wall Street Journal information, what's going on in your segment, what's going on. The fact that you have 20% less sales might be very good, because let's say in your industry, your segment, your market, the average organization is down by 30. We had a client several years ago. He called me kiddingly. He said, I'm really upset with you guys. I said, why is that? Why are you upset with me? He said, sales are down 20% after we've worked with you. I thought, oh man. And he said, I'm only kidding. He said, the average organization in our industry is down 42%, which means that they're about 22% ahead of everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole thing went south, but the competition didn't. Or the competition did, but they didn't.
So we're actually been doing both of these at the same time. Look for year-over-year improvement, but monitoring the marketplace trends at the same time.
Yeah, because what happens is
that's the only way you can do it.
That's the only way you can do it,
Right.
because otherwise you're doing it in a way that's inconsistent.
And finally, develop statistics relative to prospects, contacts, appointments, and closing ratios, dollars, and margins. Let me say it again. Develop statistics relative to prospects, contacts, appointments, and closing ratios and dollars and margins.
What happens is this. Are you getting larger margins? Are you getting higher conversion ratios? Are you getting more prospects? Are you getting more referrals? In other words, you want these things to be trending up. You don't want them to be flat. You want them to be trending up. Now, if you take a look and you do these things, you're not going to fall prey to the illusions that we talked about at first. Mm-hmm. And now what you do is you have an objective, honest evaluation of your sales force. How good are they really versus how good they could be? Mm-hmm. And your job is to remove excuses and to get these folks performing. Nobody makes a conscious effort to go in and say, let me show you how little I can do today. Well, maybe they do. But I'll tell you, you shouldn't have it in your organization, particularly with salespeople, because they're paid for performance.
Bill, it's been great doing these webinars with you. I look forward to the next one.
Oh, look forward to the next group we do.
Thanks. Thanks for joining the Sales Buzz. This has been a Brooks Group production.